Resistant starch
is today's topic of choice.
We've been testing it for about a month. We went through one of these bags and we have some takeaways.
So this right here is Bob's Red Mill potato starch. We'll link it below so you can take a gander if you'd like to check it out.
A lot of people are taking probiotics, which are colonies of beneficial gut bacteria. Resistant starch is the food that the good bacteria in your gut eats. So it promotes an environment for more good gut bacteria to grow, theoretically. And this is very theoretical is what I've kind of learned.
From your personal experience?
And just also from reading.
Research,
if you actually go look at the research, it's very, very shaky, extremely shaky.
It's something to play around with if you feel like, maybe your digestion is a little messed up or something helping you with your gut flora could be good.
It's definitely in the realm of things I would mess around with, see if it benefits you. But first we're going to go through kind of the proven research on this, and then at the end we'll do our takeaways.
Yes.
Because we've been doing it for a month. We'll let you know what we think. This is actually the second time I've done it for a month. I did it once about 5 years ago, pre-keto, for a month. So I have a pretty good feel for what this does for me. We'll talk about that at the end.
So just real quickly, why might people say that this is not good on a keto diet? What's the issue? What about the nutrition?
Yeah, so if you look at the nutrition here, 1 tablespoon is 10 grams of carbs, 0 fiber, 0 sugars. Yeah, it's just 10 grams of carbs. So you hear starch and you're probably thinking you can't do starch on keto, stay away from starch. This is kind of different. It's a resistant starch. It's totally indigestible. That's what the resistant means. It's digestion resistant. So it passes through your body, gets into your gut, and then things eat it the good things eat it.
The scientific way of saying it.
And we've done a lot of ketone and blood glucose testing in conjunction with doing this.
Right.
0 effect on it. So
which we'll talk about at the end. But I just want to let you guys know that there might be an issue that arises where people are this isn't keto friendly.
Not keto.
Because of the carbs, but as you'll learn later on, there is really no overlapping issue with the keto and resistant starch.
The sources you can get resistant starch are the main 2 or 3 is cooked and cooled potatoes and green bananas, unripened bananas that are just
the bananas
gross.
I never ate.
Yeah. In the context of a keto diet, really the only way to try resistant starch is with this exact thing right here. Potato starch, Bob's Red Mill brand. It's just a powder. This is the only way to do it with keto. Next up, we'll go into the quotation marks proven research about this supplement here. And the quotation marks are because there is no proven research. It's very shaky research. So the big one is that it feeds your good gut bacteria. It feeds the good stuff. It doesn't feed the bad stuff in theory.
Butyrate is in our bodies, and it's actually what the resistant starch feeds on. But it's important to note that butyrate varies from person to person. So I could have a lot of butyrate in my gut flora and my stomach lining, but Matt might have none. Mm-hmm. So that'll definitely play into the benefits you see from resistant starch.
Across the board though, if you start off having high butyrate levels, I don't even know how they measure that, or if you start out having really low levels, everyone taking resistant starch sees an increase in butyrate levels, pretty much. The next potential benefit is that it improves insulin sensitivity. So the basis for the claim that it improves insulin resistance and makes people more insulin sensitive is based on a 4-week, 10-person study. It was given a double-blind placebo, resistant starch versus normal stuff, normal starch. The people with the resistant starch had slightly better insulin sensitivity at the end of the 4 weeks. So obviously not a huge sample size, not a great study.
Right.
And they were given a 30-gram dose of this. That was a dosage.
2 tablespoons.
It's a little over 2 tablespoons, 2.5. We'll get into dosing at the end also, because there is some caution you need to have with that. 10 people saw an improvement over 4 weeks. So what does that really mean?
Not
In my
much.
opinion, not much at all.
It lowers your blood glucose response to food, which also kind of falls in line with the improving insulin sensitivity, right?
So yeah, so there's a couple data points that just lead you to believe that this stuff kind of helps your body handle meals a little bit better. They tested the first time, and this is only another study of like 16 men. Honestly, I looked at every piece of research on this. There's never been like a 500-person study. It's always like 10 healthy weight men. A double-blind placebo meal. One meal contained resistant starch, and one meal contained normal starch, like maltodextrin. At the 15-minute level, the appetite suppression, satiety, and food intake, no change at all. Then they went back into the study and did the 2-hour reading. How much more food did you consume in the 2-hour window after that meal? And the group that had the potato starch had a 15% decrease in caloric intake. There's that.
So theoretically, right, if I'm usually able to consume like 30 net carbs and, my blood glucose stays pretty level, using resistant starch over a month period, which it seems like all these studies are using, I could consume more carbs on a daily basis and still have level blood glucose, right?
I would say that's potentially true. That's what the data leads me to believe.
So one of the most commonly mentioned benefits is that it reduces your fasting blood sugar.
Fasting blood sugar is like a huge indicator of good health. Based on all the research, like the worse off you currently are, the more impact something like this could have. If you're like a super healthy individual, already have a really low fasting blood glucose, this probably won't do that much for it. Yeah, so the last two are it increases satiety and it helps with nutrient absorption, both of which super small studies like everything else here.
But everything we mentioned are definitely all worth noting, especially if you want to experiment with this or you've never thought to. We actually had a podcast recently with Leanne Vogel from Healthful Pursuit, and she's also been a proponent and like used resistant starch in her day-to-day before. I don't know if she still does, but it's something like she's experimented with and thought was, worth trying.
A lot of supplements will have reasons behind it for you to buy it, like big businesses pushing their agenda. This is just like Bob's Red Mill potato starch.
Yeah.
They're not really pushing much of any agenda, I would say. So most of the data and research is pure on this. Results. First off, let's talk about the dosing. You got to start slow with this.
Yes.
And I was able to ramp up really quickly. Like I did a half teaspoon the first day, and then by like the end of the week, I was already doing 2 tablespoons.
I'm more sensitive to things, so I started with like half a teaspoon, and then by the end of the week I was probably at like a teaspoon.
And a good dose for this is between 20 and 30 grams daily. Mm-hmm. I usually just err on the high side because I like to just get after it. So I was doing 30 grams for the duration of the month.
And I am currently at around 30 grams. I would say like slightly under.
And how we take it, I just mix it in water. It's pretty, like, it has no taste.
Mixes well.
Yeah, mixes well. So the takeaways. We both tried it and we're very different. I would say I'm more of like a healthier person. I don't want to say healthier person, but I have like a history of better health. And she's taken a lot of antibiotics and stuff.
You respond well to everything. Like all the experimental diets we've done, and you guys have seen it. We've done carnivore, we've done fasting, we've done carb bloating. Matt just responds very, very well. He stays pretty level with his levels, right? Mm-hmm. Blood levels, ketone levels. It was interesting to see the difference. And I'm very different. I respond negatively most of the time to everything we've experimented with. So for me personally, I am in favor of it. For me, at least, I can say that it's been beneficial in making me like fuller the next day. I wake up and I don't have any of like the bloatedness. Even if I eat like a ton of cauliflower, usually bloats me. And I feel like if I ate a ton of cauliflower the night before but did the resistant starch, the next morning I would wake up and I'd be more comfortable. Like something's happening overnight that I can't speak to, but I like the way it makes me feel fuller longer. And I think naturally my blood glucose is pretty low. So I don't know if it's doing anything there, right? Like my blood glucose is pretty low fasting, like low 70s. Before I start to eat, I hit the low 60s. So for me, it might not be beneficial there, but for Matt, it could be, right? Because you have a higher fasting blood glucose.
Now I'm just starting to think of this. So we just went to Las Vegas, came back, went a little wild in Las Vegas, had like a lot of drinks, a lot of food. And she really bounced back a lot quicker. We've been testing our glucose in the morning. She's been low. And just like now, maybe a week later, I'm getting back to being lower in my morning fasting glucose. But she's been taking the resistant starch that whole time and I've stopped. So I'm not super in favor of it. I no longer take it. I took it for a month to give it a test. This is the second month I've done this in my life. The first month I had the similar results, or else I would have been taking it all this time. But I just wanted to try it again because now, since doing keto, I'm way more in tune with my body and I can kind of like feel what's happening more. Yeah, I didn't notice huge benefits from it at all. I think our kind of conclusion is that, and a lot of what I've read too, is like if you have underlying issues, you notice it a lot more when you take these. So if you have a problem, if you have taken antibiotics in the past like year or two or something, frequently, if you just feel like you're not like really absorbing all the nutrients and stuff well, maybe this is something for you to try. But if you're like a pretty healthy individual, I don't think you're going to notice much from that.
And by no means are we nutritionists or doctors, so us suggesting all these things is really just from our experience, takeaways, and research. Definitely read up on it if you're interested, and then, you know, maybe buy a bag and give it a try.
That is resistant starch. Definitely share your experiences with resistant starch below. The best information you can get on resistant starch is just anecdotal information off the internet. Comment below, let us know your experiences with it, because these studies are like nothing. So like you guys typing below that it helps you, that it did nothing for you, is really beneficial for people to read. Let us know. Resistant starch.
Loving it.
Not really loving it.